Hello guys and welcome to the second Glampitect webinar. This one tonight is on financing your glamping site, how you guys can pay for your glamping sites and the various different aspects of it. So I'm just going to give it a minute to wait for a few more people to join. I need to send a quick message and then I'll jump back and we can continue. So if you guys just give me 1 minute, I just need to send out a quick message. In the meantime, I'm going to share a link actually, so this is something I was going to speak about in a minute, but I'll share a link with you guys just now, and it's basically just a quick 2 questions. First one is, what stage are you at with your glamping plans? And second is, have you got any questions you want to ask here tonight? That means that I can get a really clear idea of what stage you guys are all at, so I can try and tailor the presentation to what stage the majority of you guys are at. So if you can go ahead and do that, and I will just be about 1 minute.
Sorry, I missed that. Do you want that in the chat or do you want us to say it out loud?
If you just click the link and you can fill it in, and I'll get that straight back to me. It'll come up live on my screen. I've got 2 screens here, so I'll be able to see your responses over here, and that means that I can try and tailor the presentation to suit you guys. So I am just about ready to go as well. I just wanted to do a quick little check. With that said, let me get straight into it. So yeah, thank you everybody for coming along. I actually recognise quite a few faces here, which is good. Quite a few clients that have been around for a while even, which is fantastic. The previous presentation, I forget off the top of my head what it was, but it was certainly much earlier on in the process, whereas probably quite a lot of you guys here are that little bit further on, although I'm sure that at the same time there is also quite a few of you that are at super early stages, just wanting to get a really good idea of you know, is this feasible? Pardon me, is this feasible, is this possible that I can actually do this? So what I'm going to do, guys, is I am going to share my screen now. I've prepared a presentation which is very unlike me, getting mature in my old age, I think. So here is a presentation. You guys that came along last time will have seen the first few slides of this. A little bit about me, a little bit about the businesses. So if you came along to the previous presentation, feel free to go away, make a coffee, make a tea, whatever, and come back in about 10 minutes. But for those of you that haven't met me or don't know too much about the businesses, there'll be about 10 minutes on that, who am I, and so on. And then from there, we're going to get into the various different aspects of setting up a glamping business, and then from there, how you can pay for them. Whether there's various different means that you can pay for your glamping business. By the way, guys, can you all hear me? Okay. Maybe just give me a quick thumbs up if it's all good. Yep. I might look across a couple of times, so I've got you guys on this screen. So if I'm talking directly to you, I'm probably going to come over here, but I've got the presentation in front of here. So, and I need to keep admitting people in because there's actually nobody else in the team here other than me. So bear with me on that as well. So yeah, who am I? So I'm Calum MacLeod. Probably a lot of you will have heard of me or know me through dealing with Glampitect. I've actually got a few different businesses within the glamping industry. The first is North Coast 500 Pods. So I set up my own first glamping site in 2019. It opened May 2019, and then from there I realised, so I was actually at the glamping show that year trying to work out what pods to get for my own first glamping site. And as I was walking around, I realised that there was very few people that there was lots of people trying to sell pods, but very few people doing anything except that. And I realised that everybody there, all of you guys, people alongside me at that point, needed help setting up glamping sites, not just buy some pods, buy some shepherd's huts, but actually all of the other things. And so from there, I set up Glampitect, and I'll speak a little bit more about that in a minute. From there, we've also gone on to set up Glampitect Global and Glam Compare. And again, I'll chat about them in the next couple of minutes. I've also won awards for the best glamping site in Scotland, which was actually really exciting. That was only 3 or 4 months after we opened, when it was all very fresh and new. And yes, that was super exciting at that time. It says here I've worked on over 400 glamping projects worldwide. That's actually now over 600, so that was slightly outdated. Clearly I've stolen a couple of slides from a previous presentation. And yeah, I currently own 2 glamping sites, myself with 3 more in various stages of design, with the largest being 51 units. So that's a really exciting one that we'll be talking about a lot more soon. So who is, let me get it along, who North Coast 500 Pod. So that was the first site, as I mentioned. I set it up with my business partner here, Ali. Now he is actually super relevant to what we're going to be speaking about in this presentation. So remember Ali when I'm speaking about private investment later on. So North Coast 500 Pods, the first site got set up on my mum and dad's land. The second site, we actually leased the land, which again is pretty relevant to what we're speaking about here today, and ultimately ended up buying it. So we did a little bit of jiggery-pokery to help with cash flow at that time. And yeah, that's North Coast 500 Pods. Now I am going to quickly bring into the screen Google 360-degree walk around of the pod. So this is our first North Coast 500 Pod site. We have 4 units on there, and quickly run around it. This was November in Scotland, so a little bit sad, a little bit miserable. We really do need to get one in summer. Got a barbecue, fire pit. Barbecue's hiding under here and probably strapped down, given it's November. Yeah, you can see it's weighted down. And yeah, we went quite all in on the kind of finishings. We've got really nice cladding on the wall. We've got a lovely sign. Now, why have we done that? Expensive decking as well. Why have we done that? That has enabled us to charge north of £250 a night in the summer for this site. Now, that being said, it's also a super desirable location. But yeah, North Coast 500 Pods, we have gone all in on the setup, finishes, and we have reaped the rewards for it. Again, you can see lots of lighting around. So we've got festoon lighting around. We have little floor lights as well. I'm a huge fan of lighting. I think that it's a great USP. Now USPs will definitely be a webinar that we'll be doing soon. I'm not going to go too much into it here, but USPs are super important for glamping sites. And you can see the lighting in there. We've got a key safe. Now that enables us to make booking, checking in, etc. completely autonomous and doesn't actually need anybody involved. Again, we'll probably have a webinar on a different day about that. Inside the pods, again, really nice finish. We've got underfloor heating, smart TV, so we've got Netflix on there, double sofa bed, double bed, full kitchen, and bathroom. Now that's a kind of whistle-stop tour of that. I'm going to jump back to the presentation because we're not necessarily fully talking about NC 500 Pods, but that does just give you an idea of what we have. And you know, when I mention NC 500 Pods, that's what we do. Now, before I continue, one thing to mention, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. Now, I'm going to type in the chat box myself here. I just say in here. So if you have any questions at any point, I'll probably want to have a little breather from talking. So I'll look in here, I'll read through some of your questions, shout out the answers. And any that we miss, any we don't get round to, I'll get one of the team to come back to you over the next few days. So yeah, feel free to type into the box as I'm speaking, and I'll jump across at various points and try and answer as many as I can. So yeah, who are Glampitect? Glampitect are the company probably to see today. You've probably had some emails from us, had some dialogue with us. As I've said, a lot of you guys are clients. I'm aware of that. So yeah, not too much to say there other than we help people set up glamping sites from start to finish. That idea was born at the Glamping Show. First thing that we offer is a feasibility study, then pre and full planning applications and websites and marketing. Now I'm going to chat a bit about the feasibility study in a minute, although I won't go into too much detail, given that probably a lot of you guys are already past that stage. But for those of you that aren't, I'm also going to send out a way that you guys can contact us to have a chat after the presentation, maybe tomorrow, something like that. So next, who are GlamCompare? So again, very similar in that I was in a position where I thought there's a lot of people around here that need my help or need help from somebody. I can provide something that can help with their problem. And now that problem was that there's loads of manufacturers in the glamping industry. Most of you guys are going to be very aware of that. Some are complete cowboys, some are fantastic, and there's everything in between. It seems at the moment like there's a new manufacturer popping up every week. So what have we done to help with that? We have, well, set up and we are about to launch GlamCompare. It's going to compare every manufacturer in the glamping industry. So you'll be able to go on there and say, I want to spend no more than £20,000 a unit. I want it to have a kitchen, a bathroom, underfloor heating. I want it to look like a proper pod shape outside, blah, blah, blah. And then it will generate which is the best match for you. And then from there, you can get in touch with those manufacturers. Essentially, it's a one-stop shop for comparing every manufacturer in the industry. I know that if I had that when I was setting up my own glamping business, I would have really, really benefited from it. So yeah, that's GlamCompare. From here, yes, actually, we've already done this bit. I'm going to resend the link, guys, for anybody that wasn't here at the start. Just so that I can see what stage you guys are all at. So anybody that has joined since I previously sent that link, if you could just click on there and just tell us what stage you're at, put in any questions if you want to answer them and if you want me to answer them. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second and I'm going to bring you guys back over here and answer a couple of questions just to give me a breather whilst everybody is filling that in. So, is there anything you wish you did differently before starting your first site? So this is an interesting one. I get asked this a lot, and the biggest thing that I always say is I had about a 6-month gap between having the idea and actually putting in planning, and then I had about another 6-month gap between getting the planning approved and actually going out and finding money for the site. If I'd done both of them much quicker, let's say, you know, I'd shaved off the full 6 months for both, my site would have been open a full year before that. Now that first site makes over £150,000 a year, I'd be £150,000 better off. So that is the number one biggest thing that I would do differently if I could go back, is do it all quicker. It's very easy for me to say now, you know, I'm sitting here, I've got the successful glamping businesses, you know, it seems easy in hindsight. And I know that if I had this guy in front of me 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I'd have been like, oh yeah, you know, but what about this, what about that? But yeah, now in hindsight, I know how well it's gone. And that's definitely the thing that I would do if I could go back, is do it all sooner. What size glamping pods do you recommend? That'll house everything we showed previously. So those units that you saw there, they're 6.7 meters long, 3.3 meters wide. Standard road rules in the UK, you can't go any wider than 3.3 unless you want to have, you know, hassle on the roads in terms of having to shut roads and things like that, or you want to put them in 2 pieces, which, you know, neither are fun. So most of the units that you see in the UK will be 3.3 meters wide or less. You can go as long as you want, but yeah, you can fit in pretty much everything you saw there in the 6.7 meters. What VAT do you pay on glamping pods? So a lot of the manufacturers, I'm not going to pretend I'm an accountant. but it's something to do with, I think, having a kitchen and bathroom in them means that you only need to charge 5% VAT. So manufacturers will only charge 5% VAT. There are some that are 20. As I say, I'm not going to pretend I know why either of those are, but it is something to do with kitchens and bathrooms, I'm sure. Can you only have help with some stages? We have website marketing covered by family members. Yeah, of course. You know, we would only do a feasibility study and then say, good luck, see you later, or we can do the full thing. They're very separate services that we offer, and we're more than happy for you guys to pick and choose. Right, I'm going to answer any more. I'll do one more. So can you recommend the best place, people, way to properly value land? Honestly, I don't think anybody could. Something's only worth as much as somebody else is going to pay for it. And that's kind of the crux of it. So I know I had a lot of friends out visiting me last week, and a couple of them are trying to buy houses just now. And where we stay, and it's probably the same for where a lot of you guys stay as well, every house is going for 20% above the market value. So what's the value there? The valuers are valuing it at X. Everybody else is paying X plus 20%. So there's not really any way of valuing something properly other than finding somebody that's willing to pay you something that you're willing to sell it for. And then that's what the value is. And that's probably a very different way than probably what most people would look at it. But that's certainly the way that I would look at it. Now let me share my screen again, guys, and we will jump back to the presentation. Feel free again to put any questions in the box. So yeah, the Glampitect feasibility study, we've mentioned this already. I'm not going to go into too much depth because I saw that a lot of you have actually already done one. Let me go full screen 2 seconds. A lot of you have already done one, but yeah, the feasibility study is about a 20 or 25 page report. It looks at the 4 most important aspects of setting up a glamping business. First, planning probability. How likely is it that you will gain planning approval? Second, construction challenges. So how much water, power, drainage, telecoms do you need? Next, demand and competitor analysis. So who's around? How much are they charging? And because of that, how do you compare? And how much can you charge in comparison to them? Finally, return on investment. So how much money is this site going to cost to set up, firstly? And then how quickly will you make that back? Finally, we have manufacturer and supplier recommendations. So that's actually an addition since I spoke to too many people about feasibility studies. So recommend manufacturers and can help with suppliers and things like that. If any of you guys want to chat to us about a feasibility study, I'm going to send out another link at the end. And if anybody wants to have a conversation about a feasibility study or anything else, you can fill that in, request a call back tomorrow. As I say, I'll send that at the end. So into tonight's topic, how to finance your glamping plans. So we're going to have 4 main sections that we will be speaking about here tonight. Firstly, what you need to pay for. So what are the different chunks of things? It's pretty high. We're going to pretend we've laboured this right through, but we've broken it down to some high-level chunks, and I'll explain what you guys need. I'm then going to explain how you guys can pay for it. Give me a second, guys. I just need to do a mute because there was a bit of noise there. There we go. Okay, so yeah, next, how to pay for it. And then from there, get that noise again. 2 seconds. Okay, sorry. And then from there, once I've said how to pay for it, I'm going to explain each of those financing techniques, not in too much detail. Again, I'm not going to pretend that I'm something I'm not. I'm a guy that knows how to set up glamping businesses. So I'm not going to be able to tell you the exact intricacies of commercial loans or anything like that. But what I can do is relate all of that information back to glamping based on our experience of working on over 600 glamping projects in the last 3 to 4 years. And then finally, how much will your site cost to set up? There's going to be another link that I'm going to share there. I'm actually going to run through it with you guys as well. We have a cost setup calculator on the Glampitect website, and that should help you guys understand how much your glamping site will cost to set up, roughly. Look, it's not going to be perfect, but roughly. So what you need to pay for and the options to pay for it. I've broken these down into chunks. And I'll explain why now, because at first viewing, they maybe don't make perfect sense. You know, for example, consulting's right the way through, planning's fairly early, websites and marketing are towards the end. They're bunched together for a specific reason, and the specific reason is this. Each of these different types of thing, these 4 different columns, they have different ways that you're able to pay for them. These guys here are all the same, so hopefully that makes sense. It'll all make sense in a minute. So yeah, land is a kind of section on itself. Consulting, planning, websites and marketing section to themselves. Site setup, groundworks and so on. And then finally, glamping units. So land is the first, probably the least relevant as a whole here. I'm conscious that probably quite a lot of you guys already own your own land. But for those of you that don't, we'll run through this here. So firstly, how much will land cost for your glamping business? Massively varied, and that's, you know, in part down to the fact that you could rent the land or you could buy it. That in itself is going to, you know, give you a very big degree of variability in the number that we're speaking about here. So yeah, the price could range from £500 per month up to £1 million or more as a one-off purchase. And in fact, our own first glamping site, that is what we pay. We rent the land and we pay £500 per month. Process of agreeing a lease just now for the 50-unit site that I spoke about earlier on, and that lease is going to be, it's about £10,000 a month that we'll be paying for that. Now, obviously, that's a much bigger scale, but that gives you an idea of range for leasing or for renting land. And then, you know, for purchase of land, it could be infinite. Really, we've actually got clients that are over £1 million in potential land purchase at the moment. So how can you pay for this land? If it's rented, it's going to be much lower, and that'll probably just come out of the business cash flow. You know, you might even agree a deal whereby, in fact, we pretty much did this with both of our sites, whereby you agree to rent the land, but you don't pay any rent until the site's set up and it's starting to make money. That means that you have no money to spend on the land up until the point that you open, and then from there you're bringing in money anyway, so it's just a business cost. And as you guys can probably all put together, that massively reduces your initial outlay at the early stages. And that's why for our own second site, we initially leased the land and said, look, once the site's set up and it's 6 months down the line, we'll buy it, but we don't want to spend the money now. Are you happy with that? And then the seller was. And again, that comes down to that value piece that I mentioned earlier. Something's only worth what 2 parties are willing to agree on it. So yeah, that's the different options. You can rent or you can buy. If you're renting, it'll probably just be business cash flow, you know, working capital. And if you're wanting to buy, you may be able to get a mortgage on the land, or of course purchase with cash. That's an obvious one. Or you could get some investment, whether it's commercial loans or whether it's private investment. I will, in fact, I'm going to come back to the screen for a minute, guys. Does anyone have any questions that they want to shout out just now on that? Feel free to put your hand up. There's a little button for those of you that understand Teams. Put your hand up if you've got any questions. I'll also look in the chat to see if anybody's got anything to ask about land. So how much will the groundwork landscaping cost for a 10-pod site? So I will come to that in a minute. There's actually a kind of clear bit on that. That's good that we've got that in there. I can see somebody saying I keep cutting out. Is that an everyone thing, or is that only a one-person thing? No, all good, right, okay. Sorry, Linda, then I'm not going to help, but I will share the recording if you can't hear throughout, and you'll be able to hear it all properly. Did you agree the final purchase price at the same time as the land lease? Yes, we did. So we agreed the whole deal right at the start. So we said we were going to pay, it was something super nominal as well. It was like, I think £100 a month for the rent. And that was because it might have even been £100 a year. It was really, really small anyway. And it was basically just because the person wanted to sell the land and they wanted us to buy it. And we said, we're willing to buy it, just not yet. Because we have, over £100,000 to spend out in various different bits and pieces. If you let us spend that money and then make some money back, we will then pay you. So there was definitely a few intricacies there, but that is what we did. Whilst I see the planning permission mentioned, another part of that offer, so we had loads of intricacies to this offer, the offer was also contingent on planning approval. So we said, we want to buy it, we'll pay in 6 months, we'll pay you a nominal fee in the meantime whilst we're setting up the site, and we'll only sign the deal when we get planning approved. So we actually submitted to the council, we obviously agreed it in principle, submitted to the council, got the approval, and the day that we got the approval, we got the keys essentially to the land, and off we went from there. What's the process for what's the planning permission process for rented land? Just the exact same, really. There's not too much different to it, other than I think I've seen a few things recently that you need landlord consent to submit the planning application, but barely any difference at all, really. How quickly will a feasibility study take to get done, i.e. with property land that's selling fast, will it get done quick enough for this to be done? So we have actually brought in a expedited feasibility study to cater for the needs of anybody that needs something quicker. So standard feasibility studies are £497 plus VAT, and they typically take around 4 weeks, depending on how busy we are. It might be 3 weeks, it might be 5. However, if somebody wanted one in, say, 2 weeks, it's a bit more expensive. If somebody wants one in a week, it's more expensive still. We actually had one last week or the week before it had to be £1,500 because they literally wanted it the next day, and we had to take everybody off everything, and 2 of the feasibility study guys had to write it. So we can do it as quick as you need it, essentially. We just need to charge a bit more and move things around. I will come back to the presentation now and move on from here. Feel free again, guys, to keep typing questions and I'll answer them as we go. So next, consulting, planning, websites and marketing. So pretty varied cost here. It might be £5,000 in total, maybe up to 15,000, depending on how much you do and how in depth it is and things like that. It is spread over a longer period. So, it might be 6 to 12 months from start to finish. The tricky thing about this is it's essentially just buying a service. There's nothing that if somebody was loaning you some money that they could pick up and take and sell on to somebody else. So because of that, it's hard to get, any sort of commercial lending or anything like that on these things. However, the kind of main options are private investment or cash. Cash, again, as I say, you can use cash for anything, obviously. And now by cash, I don't mean turning up with a briefcase full of £100,000 and saying, here you go. I mean, money that you've got in your bank account. So yeah, that's only 2 real options for consulting, planning, websites and marketing. Next, site setup. So this is groundworks, drainage, electricity, all of these things. And the cost varies depending on unit volume. So I saw a question when I was on the chat and I kind of deliberately skipped over it because I knew that it was getting answered here. The rough cost for groundworks, drainage, etc. would be £10,000 per unit. Now that is inclusive of, nice paths, maybe a little bit of landscaping, maybe a bit of decking. So it's not like that's the cheapest. You could probably half that cost if you were just talking electricity, water and drainage. But that £10,000 per unit is probably what you're going to have for a decent scale glamping site. So hopefully that answers the question. For a 10-unit site, roughly £100,000 in groundworks, drainage, electricity, landscaping, and so on. Now, groundworks, because of the nature of it, it's a quick thing. Your groundworks contractor is going to be in and out fairly quickly. He'll probably want 50% upfront and then 50% some way throughout the process. So that amount of money will leave the bank fairly quickly. Unlike the previous consulting planning that gets spread over a period of time, this is super quick. And again, similar to before, it's only really cash and private investment that can pay for these. Now, why is that? The main reason is, again, if you install a drainage system and you do some lovely landscaping and so on, and then you take a commercial loan and you stop paying your commercial loan, the lender can't jump in his car, come out and pick up your groundworks and take them away and sell them to somebody else. So they have no real tangible value to the lender, meaning that they have no security. And because of that, they are unlikely to loan on groundworks. And so, yeah, main things here, cash or private investment. Finally, glamping units. So this is definitely where we can get a little bit smarter with financing these. And the good thing is that your glamping units are probably north of 50% of your overall project cost. And we're going to be speaking about financing and leasing in a second, which is obviously great, because that means that you can finance potentially 50 or more % of your glamping project, which is also obviously a positive. I'll give you a worked example. North Coast 500 pods, the first site that you saw there, cost £180,000 to set up. The glamping pods themselves cost £100,000, meaning that we had £80,000 in everything else, in consulting, in planning, in groundworks. Obviously, we were about £50,000 in groundworks, and so on. So if we were to go down the financing route, we could have financed the glamping units. I'll speak about the exact amounts that you can finance in a minute. But let's just say for easy maths, you could finance 100% of that. That would mean that we could get £100,000 loan, buy the units, and we would only have £80,000 left to find, which is a lot more manageable than £180,000. So that's how the financing would potentially work. So yeah, how much do glamping units cost? £20,000 to £50,000 is probably the industry standard for decent glamping pods. Yes, you can spend half of that or less, but again, I'll speak about this in the USPs webinar. That is not necessarily the way that we would recommend going for future proofing. Right now, you'd make a fortune, but 2-3 years down the line, if you've got low quality glamping pods, your rental will definitely suffer. So yeah, £20,000 to £50,000 roughly, and these can be paid in chunks, typically 50-50 again. So hi, Mr. Glamping pod manufacturer, I want to buy some units from you. Okay, no problem, pay us 50% now and 50% when you leave the factory. There's been a lot more deposits floating around of late. Now, the main reason for that is that you can see here the 10, 40, 50 payment profile. One of the main reasons for that is that lead times are so long, the manufacturers aren't taking full payment at the start, or in fact, we've actually seen it that clients have come to us, put down a 10% deposit that's contingent on planning, and so they'll get a refund if planning is refused, or if planning is withdrawn, or whatever. I'm pretty sure I've heard of some of them going around now. I'm a little bit kind of back from the whole thing these days, but I've definitely heard of some of them happening. So yeah, usually 50-50 or 10-40-50 is how it's paid. And yeah, the main ways of paying for these units: cash, again, obviously, private investment, and financing. So again, any of you guys that want to hear more about financing directly from finance companies, get in touch with us. I'll send you a link at the end of the presentation, and we can put you in touch with a couple of companies that do financing specifically for glamping. Now that's a key thing there, because commercial banks are super safe. They'll lend on bricks and mortar. They'll lend on things that they've always lended on. Although I have been watching programs recently about the 2008 financial crisis and how even bricks and mortar potentially aren't a good investment, especially when for those of you that know how the financial problem started in 2008, crazy stuff. But anyway, I'll not get into that. So yeah, financing. You can, as I've mentioned, get up to, in fact, I've not mentioned that yet, I'll come on to it, get up to 80 or 90% of the total unit cost financed from these specific lenders, and get in touch if you want us to put you guys in touch with them. I'm going to come back for some questions now, and then I'm going to move on to the different types of financing techniques that we've spoken about there. So cash, leasing or rent financing, commercial loans and private investment. So a few more questions in here. Let me see. Yeah, so a couple of you guys have said that you want to be put in touch with the finance company. No problem at all. I'll send a link now, actually. 2 seconds. For those of you that want to have a chat with one of the team, ask who the finance company are here, or anything like that, you just click that link, put in your name, your email address, and a time that's suitable, and one of the team will call you tomorrow and have a chat. So I can see there's 3 or 4 of you that have already mentioned that there. Next question, how would you finance private water considerations and renewable energy, please? So private water, I would expect, would only be cash or private investment. Again, I don't know if there's any governmental stuff that might be able to help there, but certainly cash and private investment, it'll be able to pay for anything, because of the way that it is. I'm not certain if there's anything to do with water that would be able to, there might be some sort of grants or something like that. Renewable energy, very confident that there is some grants around that. There's some, what's the term? Starts with an S. I've forgotten what the term is, but basically, like, the government will pay part of it. So there's definitely things around that. There's also options at the moment. Now, this is something I'm not sure if it's commercially available yet, but we've been approached by a couple of companies fairly recently that are actually looking to put in renewable energy solutions onto people's land for free. They'll put them onto your land and they'll then sell you electricity and sometimes sell it back to the grid. So that actually could potentially be a good option for financing. Subsidies, that's the term, thank you guys. That could be a good option for funding renewable energy sources. Are there any loopholes or tricks with investing in eco cabins to allow planning to be easier? Yeah, definitely. Most councils, you want to tick the box of we're eco-friendly. It doesn't need to be the most eco-friendly thing in the world to tick the box. Obviously, the more eco-friendly, the more likely you are to gain approval. We've seen a lot more electric car charging points being relevant to applications now too. What else? Electric car charging, bike storage is a big tick. If you're near to a bus route or something like that, although I don't necessarily agree with the bus route one. I can't imagine that many people are going to go for a holiday 200 miles away from their house and take 4 buses that ends up on a local bus. So I'm skeptical of that one, but planners like it. Essentially, the more green transport that you could have to the site, the better. The more green you are on site, the better. All of that definitely improves your planning chances. What will the favourable planning for units on wheels last into the future? This is one I'm sceptical about as well. So you were probably told that by somebody that's building shepherd's huts that wants to sell you a shepherd's hut. Correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but I would guess that's where that's come from. When actually, in practicality, a shepherd's hut with wheels is not really any different to a glamping pod that doesn't have wheels in terms of being able to be moved around, because it's connected to water, it's connected to electricity, it's connected to drainage, and so it's really hard to justify to the council that you can move that. You're meant to be able to move it, I think it's on 1 day's notice, and it won't cause any issues to the unit itself. Now, you know, if you've got a shepherd's hut that has water, power, everything connected into it, can you move that tomorrow, please, and not have any problems? Pretty unlikely. So actually, the whole temporary thing is really, it feels a bit false to me. And the only people I never hear planners speaking about it. The only people I ever really hear speaking about it are shepherd's hut manufacturers that are trying to sell you shepherd's huts that have wheels. Now, any shepherd's hut manufacturers that are watching this back, I'm sorry, or any that are here, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's my experience of it. Okay, I'll see if there's any more questions. And by the way, guys, I know I will have missed some questions. I've usually got guys here helping me with the questions that are typing in, but I'll do something to try and answer as many as I can afterwards as well. Is pod density an issue for planners? Yeah, so it depends on the council massively, and everything depends on which council you're in massively. We've worked in fact, I just seen it today, over 200 councils for feasibility studies, and over 50 for planning applications, and every one of them has their own rules, and they're all different. Some would prefer them to be close together in one corner away from everything. Some would prefer them to be spread out. So there's no real kind of overall rule of thumb on that. The only thing that is a definite is that they need to be at least 5 meters apart, side to side, or front to front, or if they're corner to corner, 3.5 meters apart. Now that's for fire regulations. So as long as you're that far apart, then there's no real issues that are like hard and fast rules. Although, as I say, every council massively varies. Okay, let's get back to financing techniques then, because this is the kind of money making bit. This is probably the section that you guys are all here for. What is cash? We all know what cash is. What is leasing, renting and financing? What are commercial loans? And what is private investment? So first one, I actually had a little chuckle when I was writing this, cash. It's definitely the easiest option, but if you had enough to set up your site with your own cash, then you probably wouldn't be sitting here listening to me just now. So I'm not going to speak about that too much, and I am just going to move on. Next is leasing, rent or financing. Now there's kind of 2 separate pieces to this, and I'll try and can clearly separate those. So firstly, for land, as we mentioned quite a lot at the start, renting land can massively reduce your initial outlay. I would definitely suggest doing that, or at least renting with the view to buying down the line. It massively reduces your initial capital outlay, which is only going to be a positive. Financing pods is possible to 80 or 90% of the pod value, and then the remainder of the site, including the 10 or 20% deposit, would need to be cash or private investment. Leasing may come soon. Now, this is something that I've spoken to a few guys in the industry about. It's something we're considering ourselves as well. Leasing glamping units. So as you guys all know, glamping units are fairly expensive. You can lease a £30,000 car, so why can't you lease a £30,000 glamping project? And the main reason at the moment is that the industry just isn't mature enough for it yet. But that's a key word. We're almost at that tipping point. There's a lot of people making noise about it, and I do believe that leasing will be an option soon. Guys, could you just type in the box and just say, yeah, I would consider leasing if you would. That would be some really good information for me to pass on to the people that are asking me about leasing. So yeah, rent, leasing and financing, that's what we're dealing with there. The main thing that you can finance directly from a finance company is the units themselves, and that's 80 to 90% of the value. I say pod, but I mean unit, shepherd hut, whatever. And the key reason for that is that if you stop paying your bills, Mr. Lender can come along with a HIAB, pick it up and sell it to somebody else and get his money back. Okay, next, commercial loans. So I've included this, but there's probably very few of you here that this will actually be relevant to. And the reason is that usually for glamping, in fact, in general, I would probably say at the moment, the only way of getting a commercial loan is through an existing strong relationship with a bank. So we've had a few farms that have used commercial loans to set up their glamping businesses that have been clients. And the main reason is that they have an ongoing commercial loan kind of relationship with a bank. So they phone up to the bank and say, hi, Mr. Bank Manager, we're doing something else. We need some more money. That, £1.5 million that we've taken from you over the last 10 years, that we've paid all of that back. So can we have some more? Mr. Bank Manager says, no problem, you're a safe bet. Whereas, somebody coming out of the blue, imagine me, I think I was 23 when I set up my first glamping site. 23-year-old, not long out of uni, got a degree and not much else, got no money, got no security. Can I have £180,000 to set up my glamping site, please, Mr. Bank Manager? I promise I'll pay it back. It doesn't work. So yeah, it's a tough thing to get for glamping unless you have that initial relationship there. Now, finally, private investment. This is my personal favourite for loads of reasons, not least that it's the reason I'm here. The private investment that I got when I set up my own first glamping site, and I'm going to jump back to it, from Ali, my business partner, that is what enabled me to set up my own first glamping site, my second glamping site. It's the reason I'm sitting here talking to you guys today. So I'll be forever grateful for Ali with that initial investment. I'm sure that he'll be forever grateful for where I've taken the businesses to in the meantime, which is great. And so, yeah, I'm a massive advocate of private investment. Now, what is private investment? Well, Ali is a family friend. He's actually my cousin's best friend. And that gives you a kind of idea of where private investment may come from. It's probably a little bit closer to home than you would think. A lot of people will borrow money from family, or maybe work with a friend, bring on somebody that they know that has a bit of money behind them. I've started going further afield for my private investment. So you guys will, potentially have done the maths on the 51 unit glamping site that I spoke about before. That's not going to be cheap. I need £3 million for that. And so, I can't go to my cousin's friend and say, hi, can I have £3 million, please? I don't have many cousins that have friends that have that much money. So I am needing to go further afield now. But for the kind of level of glamping site that probably quite a lot of you guys are looking at, you will probably know somebody with the money that can do it. And if you can put together a compelling business case with a business plan or with a investment pack, an investment proposal, which I do, that's kind of what I'm doing most of the time at the moment, is proposals, investment proposals, proposals to potential sites, and so on. So that is definitely the way that I would suggest you go about trying to find money for your glamping business. And essentially, it's just a deal agreed between two parties. It could be a pure loan. Now that's something that I'm looking to go for more myself at the moment. Now it will probably be a little bit pricier than going to the bank, but the bank's probably not going to give you money. Fairly standard angel investment, which is what this is called, is around 10% per annum. Most of the angel investment money that I'm seeing just now is going for somewhere between 6 and 10%. Good thing is, if you take money at 10% and you pay it back over 5 years or whatever, for example, with my own first glamping site, cost £180,000 to set up. It's bringing in north of £150,000 a year. You guys can do the maths, and you'll be pretty aware that there's enough money there to pay 10% per annum and still have a lot of money left in the bank. Next is potentially equity. So it might be that somebody comes along and gives you £180,000. Let's use my own first site as an example again. Hi Calum, here's £180,000, and for that I want to own 40% of the business, and then you keep that money, and then that's deal, great, let's build the site. Or it could be a combination of both, and that is what I'm proposing for the large site that I've just mentioned there, and that would be that there's money invested and part of it is equity. So the person may keep 25% of the business, for example, and get paid back 2/3 of their money. And the other 1/3 of the money that they put in is buying equity in the business. So yeah, that's private investment. That is probably the most likely way for some of you guys to be able to fund your sites, or maybe part private investment, part financing of the glamping pods, or cash with financing. I would say they're probably the three most likely options that the majority of you guys will use. Now I'm going to jump back and see if we've got any questions before I go on to the calculator. So curious of what the actual profit on your 180k setup, site setup is each year. So we have really low running costs. Before we set up our own second site, we were about £2,000 to £3,000 a month. We had a cleaner that was part-time that was about £700 a month. Electricity was 400, and various other smaller chunks that make up to £2,000 or £3,000 a month. We were really not expensive. So even if you go to the higher number of £3,000 a month and you multiply that by 12, there's £36,000 a year. Let's top it up for easy maths to £40,000 a year. If we're bringing in 150, we're left with 110, which is obviously a fair chunk of money. That comes off of that, which is obviously not the nicest thing, but a lot of money there, in short. Now, if you're like me, which I'm obviously like me, that £110,000 a year doesn't stay in the business for long. I set up my own second site with the first year's money, and then I've spent the second year's money on other stuff. So I'm constantly trying to grow, and because of that, we never seem to have that money there. Maybe one day it'll be sitting there, but it's never happened for me. But for somebody that's shrewd and just wants to have a nice little earner, that £180,000 setup site would do fantastically, profiting £100,000+ a year. Now, key caveat, we are in a really nice location with lovely glamping pods, nice site, as you guys have seen, but we are able to charge for that, and that is why we can have a pretty big profit. Marketing budget per month. So interestingly, currently zero, and quite a lot of the time zero. When I first set up my own site, I did a lot of social media work that would probably be worth £1,000 a month, but I did it all myself because I understood it, and that gave us a massive kickstart. Now, one thing that you could count as marketing is commissions for Booking.com and so on. They charge 15% typically, Booking.com, Airbnb and so on. Now, I'm not going to go into the intricacies of that, but there's a really clever way to negate that cost. But I'll speak about that on a separate webinar. Let me see if there's anything else. Quite a lot of you would consider leasing. That's good. Thank you. Loads of you, actually. Brilliant. Right, that's really good information to take. Wow, loads and loads of you. Very interesting. Okay, so finally, I'm going to jump onto our site setup calculator. Now, this is the Glampitect site setup calculator. I'm going to share the link to you guys here. You can come on this anytime. It's on our website. It takes 2 minutes, and you'll be able to quickly work out how much your site will cost to set up. So it's just a few buttons, tells you how far through you are down at the bottom here. Do you already own the land? So I'm going to say yes, I do have the land. I've got a really big field that I'm going to use for my glamping site. I'm going to put on 6 luxury glamping pods. I'm not too interested in anything else. That's what I'm going to go for. I'm not going to bother with anything crazy other than that. Next, I am going to be connected to the grid, and it's a little bit hilly, but it's nothing crazy, and it's pure grass. I do have water nearby, and I have an existing road. I don't need to put in any road at all. Now, by the way, guys, this isn't going to be perfect. You know, it'll give you a rough estimate. This isn't, you know, something to take to your lender or your QC and say, not QC, QS, and say, here's how much this is going to cost. But it will give you a good indication. I'm going to put in a couple of bits of decking and hot tub. And I want to be open in 6 months. You put in your email address, and it calculates how much your site is going to cost to set up. So for everything I've said there, 6 glamping pods, high end, we've got a lot of decking, we've got hot tubs, we've got £5,000 in connecting to water, so on. The recommended budget for my site is £243,000. I'm pretty sure that adds in 10% contingency as well, and so on. So that would be my recommended budget for that site that I've just quickly kind of made up off the top of my head there. So yeah, feel free to jump onto the link that's in the chat now and do that afterwards, or keep it for later, whatever. You guys saw there, it took 2 minutes and it gave me a kind of rough budget cost. I will answer a couple more questions now. I'm actually really good timing, kind of perfectly at the end. Yeah, I'll jump on, I'll answer a couple of questions, and then we can all go away to do whatever we're going to be doing for tonight. So yeah, feel free to type in any more questions, guys. I'll jump up and maybe answer a couple more. And then finally, I'm going to share the link again for you guys to book in a call for tomorrow with one of the team if you want to. So question here, what your average per night that you're charging is, March to October or all year round? So that first site that you saw there, North Coast 500 Pods at Melvick, it's open year round, and it is actually fairly busy, even in some of the down months. Now, in peak summer months, we are fortunate with our location and our quality that we are able to charge £250 a night, which is obviously fairly high. But it's, you know, people pay it. People are more than willing to pay it because it's a lovely site and a lovely location. And we're actually a 3-night minimum on that as well in the summer, and you know, we're able to do it. It's really no issues. Now in the down months, our second site, which is the cheaper site, there's actually some days that are under £100 a night. Some of the winter weekdays are £95 a night. Now we would much rather have occupancy, and in fact we just dropped our price at our second site quite dramatically a couple of days ago, because we had, May was pretty quiet and we just made the call, let's drop it. I think we're at £140 a night and we dropped it to £100 a night, and we've already got about £3,000 or £4,000 worth of bookings in that last 2 days. So I would personally much rather have £3,000 or £4,000 that, you know, we would have had empty nights otherwise. So yeah, it varies massively from £95 a night up to 250, depending on the location and the seasonality. But yeah, both sites are open year round. Will the recording be sent out tonight? No, it won't. It'll be tomorrow morning for all of you guys that have attended, and then it's shared next week for everybody that's not come along. What is the lifetime of a pod? Now, this is an interesting question. I get asked this a lot, and there's no genuine answer because, you know, they've only been around for, say, the oldest ones are maybe 7 or 8 years old. So we can't say, you know, here's one that's 20 years old and it's, you know, still going strong. But what I can say is kind of my conclusion on it. And my conclusion is that a lot of them, you need a reputable manufacturer, first of all, and a lot of the reputable ones should last for 20 years plus, is what they tell us. And, you know, it does make sense. They do appear structurally very sound. And actually your biggest issue with that amount of time, as you guys will, you know, probably be able to work out, is they'll look old in terms of finish if you don't touch them for 20 years. So what our plans are for our own sites is probably 7 or 8 years after opening, we'll refurb them inside. So we'll give them a new kitchen, we'll give them a new bathroom, just like what you would do in your house. It might cost you £4,000 or £5,000 to refresh it inside, but then, you know, off you go again. They are structurally really well put together as long as you get a good reputable manufacturer. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. That's certainly what I'm doing myself. Will planning typically allow for clearing of land in order to establish a glamping site? Yeah, so, you know, as long as you're not chopping down ancient trees or anything like that, then you shouldn't have too much issue. Now, that was a lie. I'm going to take that one back. There's a load of things that you could run into that are issues. You know, there might be a badger set, there might be newts, there might be special birds that nest nearby. So there are a load of things that could potentially stop you from clearing an area. But as long as, you know, there's no ancient trees, there's no special animals, anything like that, then you should be okay. You may need to do some work around some surveys or something like that. We actually had a client recently that had to do loads of surveys. They've got approval though, so it's great and it's all worth it in the end. But yeah, you may need to do some surveys to satisfy the planning officer that you can do your site. Any recommended investment platforms to find angel investors? So this is quite a funny one, and probably the vast majority of you will have it. Facebook. I've actually had investors contact me from Instagram before, which is, you know, similar thing. Post on your Facebook, I'm going to start a glamping site. I'd love to have some potential partners get involved. I need somebody to come along with a bit of money. I've got the land and the, you know, whatever else. I've got the land, the time, and I just need somebody to come along and invest a little bit of money. Then, you know, you're probably fairly likely to get a couple of responses in your private messages. We are actually separately in the process ourselves of doing a land matching service as well. So if you have land but no money, for example, you can go onto our platform, and it's been set up. I'll find the link and I'll send it out to you guys after. You can go on and say, I've got land in Norfolk, and I want to set up a 10-unit glamping site, and I need somebody to come along with money and nothing else. And then somebody that wants to set up a site with a joint venture will come along and we can match you guys together. So I'll share that with you guys soon. Are you aware if diversification grants are still available for agricultural land in Scotland? No, I'm not. I am unsure of that, and no, I can't help with that one. No, sorry. How do you manage your time across all your project sites? Very stressfully. Now, if I had only my own 2 first glamping sites, I would have almost no work to do at all. But I have so many different things going on that it's pretty stressful for me. But for the context of all of you guys at home, let me duck down a second, guys. I'm a bit blurry. Sorry, it's a bit weird, I know, but it will fix it. There we go. So yeah, for my own glamping sites, I actually live 5,000 miles away from my own sites. I live in Dubai. We've launched in the Middle East about a year ago, and so I live and work from here. So it's almost my bedtime. It's dark outside. But yeah, my own glamping sites, fully remotely operated. I probably only spend half an hour a week on the 2 sites that are set up. We've got a manager that deals with all the bookings and the cleaning, the laundry, and all the emails, everything like that. And if you get a decent person in to be able to help, which we've got in Christine and another couple of people too, there's really minimal input needed. And I mentioned very quickly on the site walk around that we have key safes, and the booking system sends out a key safe code, which means that actually there's no effort at all required on our part other than cleaning and replying to emails and stuff. So we've really taken a lot of the work out of it, which enables me to be able to operate my own sites from 5,000 miles away. Do you foresee saturation in the next few years? Yeah, I love this question. Short answer is yes. There will be saturation, and it will impact the guys that are putting a wooden shed in their back garden, putting a gym mat for a bed in it, and saying that'll be £120 a night, please, because that's what people genuinely are able to do just now. There's a load of places that are just not very nice, £100 plus, and it's literally like, the blue gym mats that you used to have at school. That is what they're like, and they're able to do that. They will really suffer from saturation, probably in the next 3 years. Look how many people are here today. We've had over 100 people coming in and out as I've been talking. That's 100 people that are looking to potentially set up glamping sites. Now, if you guys put in great USPs, you make it have great marketing so people can see you, there is enough for everybody, and I firmly believe that there's enough for everybody. In fact, we have a client that is setting up a glamping site literally 2 miles away from our own second site, and I have no issue with it, and the client has no issue with it, because I genuinely believe there is enough for everybody, and there always will be, as long as you provide a good enough service. When saturation comes and the guy that has a gym mat for the bed starts to lose money, you're going to be there with a lovely glamping pod that has amazing lighting, it has great marketing, it has a great following on social media, so on and so on, which means that you will always be busy. And that's certainly the philosophy that we are going for. We are setting up more and more glamping sites, and we have absolutely no concerns that we are going to have any issues with saturation, because we know that the value of our offering is fantastic. Right, I'll answer 2 more questions, and then from there I will wrap up. I'm going to send in the link again for you guys to request a call back tomorrow if you want. So click on that link and put in what you'd like to chat about and so on. And one of the guys will call you for a chat tomorrow. Right, I'll pick 3 more questions and then I will go. So how often do you change your key safe numbers? I think we've changed them once, which is probably fairly unsafe, dependent on location. But our sites are like North Highlands. You're not really going to have anybody that's driven less than 2 hours to come and stay. So chances are you're not going to have somebody drive back on the off chance that it's empty. We probably should change it more, but we've only changed it a couple of times. How did your sites survive COVID? So our first site had a really strong first year, and because of that, we had a good bit of money in the bank, and we also, as I mentioned, didn't have much cost. Most of our main costs were relative to how many people were staying with us. So our cleaner was on a paid per pod basis, so she wasn't cleaning any pods, so we didn't need to pay her. The electricity got turned off, the water wasn't used, so really we had almost no cost at all. So we actually had, you know, a nice chunk of money in the bank and didn't lose anything, which was good. On towards the end, we realised that COVID was actually going to have a massive impact on the amount of people wanting to stay at glamping sites. So we were already starting the process of our own second site at the start of COVID. And when it was announced, it was the 15th of July was the date the glamping sites were legally allowed to open back up. And I think that was announced in like April. And on the day that it was announced in April, we rushed to open up our second site because we realised there was going to be a massive boom. And we were pretty much 100% full from then for, you know, 3 or 4 months, which again, you know, massively benefited us. So yeah, we were able to just play our cards right. Glamping sites don't have much committed cost, which again was really beneficial. It would be helpful if your calculator could give an indication of potential profit. Yeah, it would. Why do we not do that? I'm going to go and fix that. And for new starters, would you recommend the glamping show as a must go to? Definitely. It's really good. Every day that anybody is there in the glamping industry, we are going to be there with 3 stands. So, you know, that says the benefit that it has to us. We're going to have VR. You're going to be able to walk around our own glamping sites and so on. It is really massively valuable for anybody that's looking to set up a glamping business. That's where I found my own pods. I walked around, looked at every manufacturer and went, I'm going to go for them. And I have ever since. When is the glamping show and where? It's mid-September in the NAEC in Stoneleigh. So I think it's like the 2nd or 3rd weekend of September, and Stoneleigh like near Coventry, for anybody that doesn't know. Let me see if there's anything else. I think that's most of it. So I am going to wrap it up there, guys. Thank you very much for coming along, and we will have another one next month, probably the same time, same day. So we'll share information on what that topic's going to be then. I hope it was beneficial. Hopefully it was good information and you enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you very much, guys, and I will see you all next time. Bye.